The Primarchs of the Imperium, the greatest sons from the greatest father of our species. Each one of these mighty warlords was in command of a legion of demigods in their own right. By cunning, wit, might and strength did they reconquer the entirety of the human race. Yet what is a great general without an even greater weapon? For each one of the Primarchs had truly divinely encrafted weapons, panoplies of wars that would make even Odysseus blush. Yet the one question that has persisted since the dawn of humanity: who is greatest? Or in this case, which weapon is strongest? So join me today as we find out which Primarch weapon is the strongest. Hey, what's up? Yeah, it's me in a new form. Weird, I know. If you're wondering why I sound kinda shit and why I look extra shit, it's currently 4 a.m. in the morning. I tried to go to sleep for the past 4 hours. My body said, fuck you. That's what it's like having insomnia. I have just downed 3 slices of thick cut bread and some jalapeno ketchup. Good shit, would recommend. And now we're just gonna do this. Tier list time. That is all, onto the lore. Alright, jokes and my sleeping problems aside, before we can get into this proper, some ground rules. Firstly, we're going to be looking at the Primarchs during that time period towards the end of the Great Crusade / early heresy. What does that mean? For example, just early enough so that Fulgrim has his layer blade, but not late enough so that Perty gets Forgebreaker from a dead Ferris. So essentially pre-Istvan, both of them. Secondly, we will be considering one main weapon from each and every Primarch. We will be touching on the entire panoply of war, but for the purposes of this ranking, we will take their most iconic or their most powerful weapon available. Because, spoiler alert, some Primarchs have really powerful weapons but don't like to use them for some unknown godforsaken reason. Thirdly, and most importantly, the way we're going to be measuring this. We will not be considering any particulars of the unique Primarch. Although we're not considering the Khan's speed, Vulcan's perpetuality, nor Magnus' psychic powers. We're making the assumption that each one of these weapons is being utilized by Mr. John Primarch. Regular, old, boring, normal Primarch. No special nonsense at all, so it doesn't matter that it was tailor-made to this Primarch. In a vacuum, if Mr. John Primarch was to use his weapon, which one of these would give him the most advantage against one of the other Primarchs? So the way that this is going to work is that we're going to be rating each and every Primarch weapon in a tier, going from C all the way up to S+. Then from S+, we will choose the best of that weapon to be the ultimate weapon. Alright? Sound good? Great! Also, it's always been like that. If you think the tier list was a different color, No, because it's 4 in the morning and we're going to ignore my mistakes. Even though I kind of ask you to do that at least once per video, but that's neither here nor there. I'm tired. This is going on. Anyway, on to our first one. By the way, this is going from least powerful to most powerful. And starting us off at C tier, ladies and gentlemen, we have none but the Lord Iron himself, Mr. Peter Turbo, with the Logos. Now this placing is kind of automatic. It's kind of odd a little bit because the Logos is not a weapon. The Logos is a suit of armor. More specifically, is a suit of battle armor. It was created to be the Logos. For those who don't know, in Greek, Logos is basically a synonym for logic. It's not exactly that, but it's basically the governing greater Gestalt understanding of consciousness. That's not really a good way to explain it, but it's just think of it like logic, right? Basically, that is what Perty used it as. The Logos was an armor that had a myriad of battlefield technologies, battlefield systems, battlefield analysis. It basically made him into the ultimate strategic mastermind, even more so than he was already. The problem though is that it was not meant for frontline combat. This was a suit of armor for a strategist, for a war leader. This was not a weapon used to win duels. Now yes, while this was indeed armed, its armament was a pair of triple-barreled frag cannons. Frag bolt cannons to be exact. And whilst that did absolute numbers against infantry, even Space Marine infantry, against another Primarch, an anti-horde weapon is not really what you want. And you may think this has been an issue for Perty, but nah, homeboy was killing that Pancration, my guy. Homie was throwing around motherfuckers like it's WWE up in this hole. Simple as. No, but seriously, if you ever read about Perty and he has to get up close and personal, he just straight up tears people with his hands. Which is pretty badass for Perturabo. But yeah, Perty hits C tier. The only one in C tier is actually a weapon, so there's a question of whether or not he could be on this list, so it's neither here nor there. But, moving on to our next bottom of B tier, we have none other than Mr. Angry Ron, with Gorechild and Gorefather. Now, why am I putting Angron oh so very low, some of you may be asking? Well, it's because it's a chain weapon. Chain weapons are fantastic. Yes, they are made of Mica Dragon teeth and they're amazing for what they do. Problem is, when you compare a chain blade, regardless of how monster crafted it may be, to a power blade or a bludgeoning weapon like a power fist or a thunder hammer, the chain weapon will always lose. That's just a fact. But the fact of the matter is the mechanism can get all gunked up, the teeth can get blunted, it's just going to end poorly. That's just a fact of it. And remember, we're not accounting for Angron and his fuck off madness. Not that he is mad, but he's just really angry mad, like fuck off, I'm mad type nonsense. I could have worded that better. But whatever misgivings the weapons may have had, Angron made up for it as a fighter. But again, Mr. John Primarch, we're not taking that into account. So, you know, Mica Dragon chain teeth, pretty solid, but not as good as a power sword. Yeah, so that is pretty unfortunate with Angron, but it is what it is. It's the nature of the weapon. If these were power axes, be a different story, but, you know, chain teeth, it is what it is. And that is our beat here, ladies and gentlemen, because, you know, surprisingly, most of the Primarchs have some type of powered weapon or bludgeoning weapon, so basically all Primarch weapons from A and up, because they're Primarch weapons at the end of the day. Even a shitty one like the Mica Dragon teeth, and I say shitty, right, take that with a grain of salt, it's still really good. It's still really genuinely, sincerely good. So yeah, Primarch weapon is amazing. But, bottom of B tier, we have none other than the one-eyed Crimson King himself, Mr. Magnus. Again, Magnus is one of those people, he didn't really utilize weapons in any way, shape or form. He did have the Blade of Athenurata, which is essentially a power kopish. Problem is though, Magnus was a psyker. He was a magic boy. So if he ever had to scrap, he just used his magic powers. Because why on earth would you use a sword, albeit a really cool sword, when you can throw lightning bolts, and fire bolts, and fireballs? Lots of balls for Magnus. Again, he didn't really need the best sword, because that wasn't his forte. So, it's a good sword, but it's not really a super well-crafted swordsman's sword, but it is still a Primarch sword, which lands it squarely at the bottom of A tier. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, we have none other than Mr. Lorgar Aurelian with Illuminarium, aka the first ever Crozius. So, Illuminarium was created for Lorgar by Fulgrim, meant to be a symbol of his office. His office essentially being the 17th Legion Primarch, but I imagine that if things went grandy, he would have been Imperial Propaganda Master or, you know, something like that. Big High Supreme of the not Space Church. He would make a really good ecclesiarch, by the way. But yeah, Illuminarium was crafted to be a hybrid symbol of office in addition to a melee weapon. It was first and foremost meant to be a scepter, because Lorgar treated it like that. Lorgar saw it as a sign of office. He saw it as a symbol. He saw it as, you know, the right of divinity bestowed upon him by the Emperor. That is what it was to him. Meaning that not only did he not treat it really like a mace, he didn't really train that much with it. Again, he could still do damage with it, because he's still a Primarch at the end of the day, but when you consider two master-crafted warrior weapons, master-crafted and master-artisanally made this was. A warrior weapon, however, it was not. Yep, so that lands Lorgar still solid, it's still a mace, still pretty good, but it's more ceremonial than anything else. So that lands us solidly at the bottom rung of A tier. Next up though, we then have Mortarion. Now Mortarion, throughout the entirety of the heresy, he used his big main weapon, Silence, a two-handed power scythe. Now, the name, he gets points for that. The badassness of being Grim Reaper wielding a scythe, he also gets points for that. The main problem though is that it's a scythe. A scythe primarily is made for harvesting wheat. Wheat are a crop. Human beings are not crops. So while yes, you may think that in reality it'd be good for cleaving through enemies, well, no. If you take a look at many war scythes throughout history, the blade is straight because when you swing with something, you want the cutting edge to be aligned with that. The cutting edge for the scythe is on the inside of it. And when the inside is horizontal, it means you gotta swing it in really weird ways. So, it's one of those things where like, yeah, Morty can make it work because he is a character, he's also a Primarch, so yeah, he can. But if you had the choice, a power glaive would have been so much better. So much better. He also has something called Lantern, which is weird. It's not really a gun, but it's like this weird magical shotgun. It's like, he got it from a cult leader, and it possesses some type of weird warp magic, and it just shoots out, and it's like a lantern. And Mortarion gets points on aesthetic, but in terms of practicality, he loses a fair bunch. Again, Power Scythe, not really that altogether. But speaking of someone not being all that together, we then have Mr. Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is known for his lightning claws, which hilariously, ironically, are known as mercy and forgiveness. I see what you did there, Conrad. I would be upset if that wasn't kind of funny, not gonna lie. But why am I putting lightning claws, something that are known for dealing through hordes and armor, so low? And that's because of who's wielding them. Now, again, as I said before in the beginning, I'm not counting to how they're wielded, but in this case, how they're crafted plays into it. If you take a look at the blades of forgiveness and mercy, they're jagged. They're somewhat serrated. Conrad is a psychopath. His whole shtick was about inflicting pain, suffering, and maiming, which is why he's basically one of the few Primarchs that shoot any and all ranged weapons. Not because he didn't like the idea of ranged combat, he didn't like the idea of bolters being so efficient at killing, so he carried something called Widowmakers, which are basically throwing knives. And these knives were specifically designed to maim and impale, not to kill. So too were his weapons. Yeah, he could easily kill with them, but the fact that these blades are jagged means that they're so much more likely to get caught on skin, bone, armor, anything in between. And when you're fighting someone weaker than you, a la a space marine or a normal human, that's great. It wounds, it's terrible, it bleeds, it's nasty. But when you're fighting someone who is stronger than you, which is basically every other Primarch, because Conrad Kurz is physically the weakest Primarch because he's malnourished. Like, regardless of how awesome and strong you may be, if you don't get food when you're young, you're going to come out a little fucked up. Meaning that Conrad isn't going to be able just to yank that shit out there. So it immediately puts you at a disadvantage. And again, John Primarch, he doesn't have anything going for him, so he really needs the weapon to do the heavy lifting. And these weapons were specifically created for this guy in mind. And Conrad is crazy. So yeah, whilst them being power claws, great and all that, it's just impractical design. Again, kind of like Mortarion a little bit, not really, but close enough. Next up though, we have someone who's incredibly effective in combat, the Khan, with the White Tiger Dao, aka that big sword that you see everywhere on every poster with him. Okay, but why is the Khan so low? Again, this is an expertly master-crafted weapon, but at the end of the day, it's still just a power sword. It's a Dao, which is a great sword. It looks great, it's fantastic, and in the hands of the Khan, it's fantastic. It's beyond amazing, but that's the thing. It's not the sword that makes the Khan, it's the Khan that makes the sword sword. The Khan could fuck up anybody with anything. That's because the Khan is just the Khan. You know, Jagatai Khan, master of roast. Fuck with me and find out, boy. Great sword. Excellent sword. But there's nothing special about it. There's no gimmick. There's no uniqueness to it. There's no special properties. It's just really good sword. But in an average guy, a really good sword is just a above average sword. Again, it's not the weapon that makes the warrior makes the weapon. And when we consider that our warrior is Mr. John Primarch, vanilla than vanilla over here, he needs a really good weapon to make him a good warrior. Which is why, solid A tier. Good sword, great sword, quality sword, but again, still a sword. Unlike our next entrant, Mr. Guilliman. Now Guilliman has two unique weapons that are pretty much iconic with him in every single aspect. That is the Gladius Incandor. And of course his most iconic weapon, the Fist of Dominion. Because y'all can talk as much shit as you want about my boy, but at the end of the day, when he's done punching in those Excel spreadsheets, when homie got a throwdown, he took a big fist. Say what you will about the Ultramarines, they love punching shit. You gotta give them W for that. But again, this is really top of A tier. It's an excellent weapon. It's a power fist. A power fist is gonna be incredibly deadly to all types of armored opponents. Because even if it can't really shatter through the armor, it can hurt underneath it. In combination with the power field and the blunt force trauma, it is incredibly potent. Not to mention the added benefit of having an underslung bolter, meaning that any type of hordes, they can just mow them down. You can buy that with a Gladius for any type of short range attacks. It's the perfect pairing motion. But again, we're only considering the one weapon, which is the Fist of the Dominion in this case, because, you know, it's the more deadly of the two. By the end of the day, it's just a really master-crafted power fist. It's a very good power fist, but it's nothing special. Unlike our next weapon that we have to talk about. That being Forgebreaker, my Ferris Manus. Forgebreaker rests perfectly at the top of A tier. Now for the three Iron Hands fans who are currently screaming at the monitor, you may be wondering, Brad, why on God's good green earth are you putting basically one of the top three Forged Primarch's weapon only in A tier? Quite simply because that's not really where Ferrus managed to spend most of his time. He spent most of his time in the Gorgon's panoply, aka his mastercrafted suit of Terminator armor. That thing that we always see, that suit of Terminator was one of the most advanced suits of Primarch armor, period. You see, you think about like smithy Primarchs, the three main smith guys. You got Perturabo, you have Vulcan, you got Ferrus, alright? Perturabo, if you need stuff done big, grand scale, sweeping gestures, city planning, he is your man. Vulcan, artisanal, mastercrafted, one of a kind, beautiful, intricate, functional, and aesthetically pleasing, that's Vulcan. Ferrus though, Ferrus is where you innovate. Ferrus is all about raw, creative process. He's going to take A plus B and make it C. He doesn't care if it's pretty, he doesn't care if it's big, so long as it works and works well. And that's where all his innovation went, into crafting this suit of Terminator armor. Not to mention, when you consider that it came to his weapon, Forgebreaker, that was forged by Fulgrim. And Fulgrim is a solid smith, but he's no Vulcan. So at the end of the day, pretty solid Thunderhammer. But again, a pretty solid Thunderhammer is still just a pretty solid Thunderhammer. There's nothing special, nothing unique about it. It's really good at what it does, but it's like the base of the base, right? It's vanilla. And vanilla is amazing, vanilla is fantastic, but at the end of the day, vanilla serves as an amazing base for added flavors above it. Cinnamon, nutmeg, maybe a little bit of fruit here if you're feeling spicy, right? That is what vanilla is made for. Which is why Ferrus, Manus, and Forgebreaker are the top of the A tier, or the vanilla tier. Should probably named it V tier in that case. That sounds like I'm talking about something else if I have a V tier. Or that just might be me. I'm moving on from this train of thought before it gets any more unhinged. But now we're entering into S tier. These are the very deadly weapons, not the most deadliest, but these are, again, vanilla plus. These things are nasty. And we're going to be opening up with everyone's favorite, Sangi. Now, Sanguinius was known for a bunch of different weapons, from the Blade in Carmine to the Blade of the Angel, but his one that is the most powerful and his most iconic is the Spear of Telesto. The Spear of Telesto is a unique type of weapon that has a unique power field generator within it. This power field generator is directly coded to Blood Angel's lineage, meaning that only someone of the Blood Angel's lineage can use it. But more specifically, if anyone else tries to use it, they turn to dust, or liquid or ash. They get vaporized, one way or another. In combination with this, it's said to be incredibly potently effective when wielded by one of the blood. Essentially, it's a spear plus. And this is like the perfect bottom of S tier. Yes, it's already a really good power spear. Power spear is very effective against getting to the joints of armor, breaking through armor as well. But it has that little bit of edge from the genetic coding or whatever it is that makes it so unique and potent in the hands of a Blood Angel, which is what puts it solidly at the very bottom of S tier. Next up, we then have Corvus Corax, and we're going to be taking a look at the legendary Raven's Talons, aka his 2 lightning claws. But I do want to give a special mention to his pistols, because he has a pair of Archaeotech pistols known as Wrath and Justice. Now, talk as much shit you want about the emo bird boy, that shit goes hard. In my left hand do I bear wrath, in my right hand doth I bear justice, and both shall be delivered unto thee. That's quality. That's quality. I'm gonna keep it a $150 with you. That is some quality right there. But that's not what we're looking at. We're looking at the Raven's Talons. The Raven's Talons are essentially Conrad Curse's claws, but better. So, as per usual, Corax is just the better Conrad, in like every shape, way, and form. I can feel the Night Lord's fans seething at that comment. But yeah, the Raven's Talons are the quintessential lightning claws. Very good, very effective against armor, very effective against hordes, mastercrafted as well. But uniquely, it's what they tie into. These are part of the Raven's panoply, aka Corax's war gear. They're uniquely synced and part of his armor. His armor, mind you, is made to run basically nearly silent, meaning that these have incredibly stealth capabilities to them. In combination, they're also made to work with Corax's Wraith Slip, aka his ability to turn pseudo-invisible. Meaning that not only do you have a pair of master-crafted power claws, they're basically silent, undetectable, and have some stealth features to them. Master-crafted, stealthy lightning claws. Again, that little edge that puts it over the top. Solid entry into the S tier. But from one bird boy to another, we then have Fulgrim with the Layer Blade. Again, we're not going to be taking a look at Fireblade in this, because again, the Layer Blade is more powerful than Fireblade purely because of the demonic entity within it. Now, how active the demonic entity was in terms of powering the sword, not really known. To my knowledge and my understanding from what I've read and what I've researched, It appears that the blade was largely inactive in that part. It was more like a slow feed of it. But regardless, it was already a mastercrafted sword. Very well, very solid, at least the equal of Fireblade. But what gave it the edge? Demon. The more and more Fulcrum gave into the demon, the more and more powerful the blade got, until ultimately when he killed Ferris on Istvan, it would fully take over. Again, it's kind of hard to measure because it does have that edge of it with it having demonic weaponry, so yeah, it is that. But even then, if you take the whole demon aspect out of it, it's still forged with some type of demonic alloy, meaning it will produce a higher quality product. Hence why I've decided to place it smack bang right in the middle of S tier, because I think that it really does make sense because it could go either way. It could be more towards the bottom or it could be more towards the top, depending on how demonic it is. That's not really something we get much of, so that's at least my interpretation of it. But speaking of finely crafted stuff, we then have Vulcan with the Dawnbringer, aka it is also a hammer Conrad. Forgebreaker is an absolutely amazing weapon. It is a thunder hammer, it is incredibly mastercrafted, and it's also a teleporter. Finely crafted, finely intricate, some of the best materials made by the best craftsmen of all the Primarchs is a thunder hammer plus. Every single good thing that a thunder hammer is, that it has, this has it. And it's wielded by a big chungus. But don't worry, Vulcan being a big chungus does not go into this. In fact, it may actually subtract from it a little bit because Vulcan is like physically the biggest Primarch, and that's discounting Magnus and his ability to physically change his form. So in the hands of John Primarch, it may be a little unwieldy, so there is that. But again, it is a mastercrafted thunder hammer of immense proportions. It does exactly what it needs to, and it does more. Being able to teleport across the battlefield and being made of the finest materials gives it the edge that it really needs. But speaking being made of the finest materials, we then have the top of S tier, that being the Lion's Blade. Now why would I put the Lion's Blade above Vulcan, I hear you ask? The Lion's Blade was crafted specifically by the Emperor's own armorers, a la the same people who helped build the Emperor's war gear and helped maintain it. Now it's unknown the skill relation between them and Vulcan. In my opinion, I believe they're on the same par. But if I believe they're on the same par, why did I place the Lion above Vulcan? Simple. The Lion is more of a warrior. The Lion first and foremost, and arguably his only good aspect throughout the entirety of the heresy, is that homie can throw hands. That's his whole shtick. Vulcan, however, Vulcan is not that. Vulcan is a leader. He is a smith first and foremost. He's not really a warrior first and foremost. If you want to take a look at the hierarchies of like Primarch in terms of combatants, Vulcan sits squarely at the bottom rung of the melee Primarchs and the warrior Primarchs and the top rung of the non-warrior Primarchs. That's where he sits, right? He's either the best of the worst or the worst of the best. Because he's just not that guy. His whole shtick is about endurance. He will take everything you can give and then he waits for that one solid clock with that big hammer. The Lion though, the Lion is something very different. The Lion is a hunter. The Lion is a predator. When the Lion gets a sword crafted for him, he doesn't care if it looks nice. He doesn't care if it has symbolism from his home world. Do you know what the Lion cares about? Does that shit kill? Does it kill well? Does it kill better? The Lion is not sentimental. He will use whatever weapon he can whenever he can, so long as it's the best weapon available to him. Meaning that inherently, whilst Vulcan may have more features, whilst yes indeed it may be more beautiful, it may have more intricate details, maybe even finer made, in terms of being a killing implement, and a more useful killing implement, the Lion Sword takes the cake wholesale. Because again, in the hands of John Primarch, wielding Vulcan's big hammer around may be a little cumbersome, but a nice, well-fitted, well-balanced longsword, that's going to be significantly better. And again, utilized by the Lion, that's all business, no nonsense. So, that's why I believe that the Lion Sword is the perfect at S tier. It's the top of S tier, it is the S tier Primarch weapon. A mastercrafted sword, perfectly created for one thing and one thing alone. To kill. Plain and simple. Solid, beautiful, amazing. But then, we're moving on to S plus tier. These are the weapons that are really good, have something special about them, and are just a little bit crazy as well. Like these are like, whoa, these are like best of the best weapons. And we're starting off with, surprising pretty much everyone, myself included, Dawn. Dawn has a weapon that is incredibly good with the Soul Sphere. Yeah, from like the two people who read the Soul Drinkers novel, that thingy. Now, why on earth would I put this here? This is a power spear, so immediately it gets points for armored penetration and being good against other Primarchs. But we know from the Soul Drinkers trilogy and its omnibus that when this weapon was captured by the Mechanicus, they tested it. And it's said to have, and I quote, the same power as a vortex missile, though much more controlled. The Soul Spear is an ancient relic weapon, most likely from the Dark Age, and essentially packs the force of a vortex torpedo in one hit, meaning that in theory, if you master this thing well enough, you could deliver a strike that will punch with not only a power spear, but also the full force of a vortex torpedo, aka the same shit they used to blow up planets with a la Exterminatus, into one-point target. Devastating, devastating, devastating weapon. Absolutely insane. And why the fuck Dawn chose to use the Teeth of Terror? Not the Teeth of Terror. You guys remember the Teeth of Terror? I remember the Teeth of Terror. The Teeth of Terror was one of my favorite relics ever. I don't know why they got rid of it, man. That shit just sucked. God, I love that weapon. The weapon was really good, by the way. It didn't suck. What sucked was them getting rid of it. The Teeth of Terror was an amazing weapon. So ask anyone who played like 7th, 8th, just quality weapon. Yeah, but Rogal Dawn preferred to use a two-handed Eviscerator greatsword, or great chainsword rather. He also had a bolter, and to my knowledge, he's the only Primarch who had a full-on bolt rifle, or bolter rifle thing. He was a marksman, and he's the only Primarch to have that. So props to Dawn for being unique. Yeah, but I don't know why he chose those weapons, or the weapon that literally has a Vortex Tornado power within it, but hey, I'm not the guy. He's Dawn. Maybe he just liked those weapons because they were square-shaped. Who knows? Next up, we then have Alfarius and Omegon with the Pale Spear. The Pale Spear is interesting because it is most undoubtedly a relic of Xenos technology. It is either Dark Age of Technology Xenos or Necron technology. Now, why do we say Necron? Because whenever we get accounts of this thing being used in action, it's said to be a combination of a phase blade and a void blade. Essentially, it can vibrate and shift through different phases of matter and get past armor, get into nooks and crannies, get into people. It is just an anti-armor weapon, but not anti-armor in a sense that it punches through the weapon, more so that it renders the armor null and void. That is the spear. And again, when you have a spear that can literally bypass armor in the ultimate dimension planar walking type thing, that's a very, very powerful weapon. But I can hear some of you saying, hold on Brad, how come you putting this above Dawn when Dawn killed Alfarius and or Omegon? Simple. Alfarius and or Omegon are only half a Primarch. They're literally just like souped up Marines. They're pretty bitch made. Dawn slapped his shit around like he was a goddamn wet paper bag. It wasn't even a contest. In the hands of another Primarch, however, who isn't Alfarius or Omegon, it could have been something different. But the fact of the matter though is those two, just a question of it's not the weapon's fault, it's the user's. But still a very powerful and very potent weapon. Much like our next one, that being Russ. With the Spear of Russ, or the Wolf Spear. And yes, I do indeed find it quite funny how the top of S Plus tier is 75% spears, and how 2 of them were never used by their Primarchs. The Spear of Russ is a weapon that was hand-forged by the Emperor himself. You heard me correct, it was crafted by the Emperor, and the Emperor most likely put in some forbidden Dark Age of Technology secrets, meaning that this thing packs way more punch than it should. Sadly, Russ didn't really use it that much in the Heresy, but we do have one account of him when he's fighting Horus, and juiced up Horus at that, and he's able to wound him, in fact. Now of course this isn't the final form of Horus Ascended, but he's still not normal Horus, and the fact he was able to bypass it means that that thing has some Emperor juice in it. Again, it's one of those things of where we don't have much going on about it, but the little that we do have screams to this being such an potent and incredibly powerful and sophisticated weapon. I think it's well deserving of S+. You could make an argument to swapping Alfarius and the Wolf a little bit around. You know, to be fair, I think you could argue that any of these 3 be swapped around a little bit, which, you know, to be fair, I'd listen to that. But one thing that you cannot argue with is the number 1 spot. That being World Breaker. Some of you may have seen this coming, some of you may be rather surprised, but World Breaker is indeed the top of our S+ tier. And it should say a lot that when you consider that the Talon of Horus, the weapon that has killed so many important characters in Warhammer 40k, is playing second fiddle to this bastard, yeah, World Breaker is an absolute menace. Why? because the World Breaker was created again by the Emperor's own hands, but it was created for the first of his sons, his most favorite son, meaning that not only did he put in all the time, effort, and energy, he also put in love and care into this that I guarantee was absent in the other Primarch's weapons. Not to mention that when you consider that anything that World Breaker touches straight up just dies. Be you Orc Warboss, Xenos Chief, or a literal knight. Yes, Horus has straight up gone to a knight and one-shotted with World Breaker. It is a master-crafted weapon, crafted by arguably the greatest artificer of all mankind, utilizing secrets from the Dark Age, or secrets that should have stayed long hidden. Fact of the matter is, this is undoubtedly the greatest Primarch weapon. Because if you take this mace, and you place it in the hands of John Warhammer, he has such a massive edge in it. When we consider like what the other Primarch weapons can do, this one has the most on it, it has the most kills, it has the most everything. It is from sheer amount of use, the most best weapon. Not only in theory, but also in practice. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is our tier list. So at the very bottom with the weakest weapon, which isn't really a weapon, is Perturabo with the logos. If you want to consider actual weapons, well then that'd be Angron with Godfather and Godchild. But then right at the very top, we have Mr. S+ with Horus, Lupercal, and Forgebreaker. You could argue that Talon of Horus could also be there, but I think that Forgebreaker just has more use to it as well. Again, the Talon of Horus is ancient Dark Age technology tech as well, so a toss-up, but I feel that it's easier to use Forgebreaker than it is to use a Lightning Claw. Lightning Claw needs a little bit of finesse, a little bit of work. Mace is a big bunking stick. Lord knows we've been killing each other with sticks since time immemorial. But tell me what you guys think. Let me know down below, what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my rankings? Would you change rankings within the rankings? Do you think it should go one up? Do you think it should go one down? I would love to hear all your thoughts down below. But I want to say a massive thank you to you guys for watching, and even more massive thank you to my awesome members and Patreons. Massive shout out to my Officer Core, starting at the Captain tier, Miss Tori. We then have our Lieutenant tier, with Mr. Eddie V3, Miss Majora of the Void, Mr. Curtis Studies, and Miss Tori. Massive shout out to my Sergeant tier members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Warsmith the Fireheart, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Sean RL7, and Mr. Matthew Merrill. Massive shout out to my Corporal tier members, Mr. Tremaine the Math Kitty, Mr. Lord Rosarius, Mr. Tech Priest Toaster, Mr. Bowen, Miss Shauna Smithers, the Gentle Salamander, the Wench of Warhammer, and finally, but absolutely not least, shout out to my amazing private tier members, Mr. Thomas Moslons, Mr. Ivan_SVW, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Ayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. Fortisunum, Mr. CMD Nay, Mr. Eric Massaro, Mr. Dom Marek, Mr. Ken_Sakura333, and Mr. Matthew Peter. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Y'all are amazing. Sign up to have our memberships, get a bunch of awesome benefits, behind the scenes stuff, early access to these videos, member only exclusive content, shout out at the end of these videos. But most importantly, you get to help out your boy and you got my love and appreciation. But remember, this will always be free. So whether you give the boy a dollar or not, I will love you just the same. Mwah! But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, amazing people. This is indeed a new shirt, not new to me, new to you, I just realized that. Also, happy Diwali to everyone who's celebrating. For those who don't know, that's like the Indian New Year, this festival of lights. Lots of fireworks, lots of sweets. Quality time, you celebrate that? Happy, love you, just... Oh god. Right, but ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, amazing people. Thank you all so very much for watching. Y'all make sure to say hello there, boys and gals. And I will catch y'all next time. Dishonest Rangers. Bro, it's fucking 5 in the morning. I was supposed to be asleep 5 hours ago, but now I'm working. This happens a lot. This happens more than it should. Please like and subscribe.